Do I really need to prime my miniature? What's going on, everybody? I'm Mike, and you're watching Mininomicon. Today we are actually going to be going over priming your miniatures. Unfortunately, before we get started, I do have a couple of things I do need to announce. I do work right about 70 hours a week between my full-time job as well as my part-time job, so making videos in a timely manner is a bit rough. I just do what I can where I can. We will actually be going from tutorials and stuff, because there's a million of them out there, I understand. And I want to really kind of focus on painting miniatures. I'm getting antsy, and I'm sure you are as well. So we'll go into that coming up in the next episode as well, and I'll just start teaching everything that I personally do in the upcoming videos as well. So do I really have to prime my miniature before I begin painting, and what's the worst that could really happen? Honestly, that choice is up to you. It's your miniature. You can do whatever you want. But the main reason why I do recommend using a primer, as well as many other painters out there, is that it actually acts almost like an adhesive between your paint and the miniature that you are painting. If you don't have any primer for your miniature, or you just can't afford it overall, there are some options out there where your miniatures come pre-primed, ready for you just to go straight into painting. Which allows you at that point to just really go, baby, go. But if you need to prime your miniature, there are 3 ways in order to get this done. First is just apply primer using a brush for a relatively quick application to smaller pieces or whole miniatures. But it might take longer, and you may not get all of the nooks and crannies on some more intricate and larger miniatures. The second method commonly used in an aerosol primer to quickly coat one or several miniatures to reduce how much time you spend doing it by hand. I do recommend doing this outside or in a well-ventilated area. Good spray technique is to keep the nozzle back 7 to 10 inches from your miniatures and sweep back and forth. If you are too close, the primer will pool up and drip, and if you are too far, it will look chalky and potentially leave a texture on your miniature. These are the most cost-effective ways to apply primer to your miniatures. The next one is a little bit more for the painting enthusiast. It's going to help you out quite tremendously in your miniature painting, but of course at the same time it does come at a cost. I don't recommend it unless you are wanting to take it to the next level. I am of course referring to airbrushing. With this method of priming your miniatures, you gain a new level of precision and control, allowing an array from controlling air pressure to how much primer comes out by the touch of your finger. This will allow you to get a much smoother and refined layer on your miniature overall. Priming your miniatures will also have a different effect depending on the colors that you use in your priming, especially when it comes to layering in the acrylic paints or inks later on. If you prime in a black primer, for instance, your colors will end up having a bit more of a desaturated look to them in comparison to white, giving a much darker outcome for your final result and potentially making it harder to bring back brighter colors. If you use a white primer instead, your colors will have a more vibrant and saturated effect, giving them a much brighter outcome for the final result. Darkening colors is actually much easier using white. Then I should only use white primers for my priming, right? Not necessarily. When using both the black and white primer, using the black primer first with the highlighting of a white primer will actually give you the highlights you need for your miniature.
Witchcraft! Bruhidia! This man is a warlock!
No, actually it's a small process called zenithal highlighting. The first step to zenithal highlighting is just a base priming coat of black primer to your miniature to act as your shadows. Next, you will need to determine where your light source for your miniature is coming from. Is it the sun, the moon, a flaming building? You decide, really. The most common choice is usually the sun due to miniatures being outside, and it will give you the most scattered light for your miniature, revealing the majority of the details as well. Then, using a white primer, begin to lightly add a layer of white primer. Treat your white paint as if it were the light source itself, casting down rays of light upon your miniature. Try and avoid painting from the bottom upwards. This will ultimately remove all sense of lighting from above. The goal is to keep the shadows in the overcasting of light. When applying a zenithal highlight, you can really only do it one of two ways. But here's a way to do it in the not so correct way, if you really don't have any other option, and if you're really just a masochist. Applying a zenithal highlight with a brush, although it can be done, it can be quite a tedious task, and you have a higher chance of adding light in the wrong places, so I do not really recommend this method. The way that I find that this kind of works is applying a pseudo dry brush method of white to your model. Not too wet and not too dry, just be sure to use an old brush. That way you won't feel bad about destroying it when you're done with this method. This might actually be a really cool technique if you're painting a statue. You're both getting texture as well as highlights. It's not something I regularly practice, but at the same time, this is, like I said, something that you would use if you don't have aerosol or an airbrush. It's just something for you to play with. I also wanted to add that the zenithal highlight, it can potentially get lost if you're layering on a lot of paint. With a zenithal highlight, you're going to want to work in very, very thin layers to maintain that highlight to give that nice stark contrast. Thin layers, watered down paints, as well as inks will be the most beneficial. The nice thing is with a zenithal highlight, if you are also planning on this, is to give you kind of a guideline where your highlights actually should be. So on that note, yes, you really should prime your miniatures. Doesn't matter what method you use, whether it's just a flat, single tone, white, black, gray, doesn't matter. Or if you want to do a zenithal highlight, which I do recommend, there really isn't any reason why you should skip this step. You're going to save yourself a lot of heartache and a lot of rework in the future, and it will help your miniatures stand up to the test of time. So there you have it. Your miniature is ready for the next step, and a step that I'm sure we're both really, really excited for is we are going to start painting our miniatures. So if you guys enjoyed the video, smash that thumbs up icon, and if you haven't done already, please subscribe to the channel, and of course hit the bell icon on the side. That way you get notified whenever I do post a new video. You guys have been super awesome with the channel growth, and I couldn't have asked for anything more. And of course, at the same time, too, if you would like, in the links down below, I do have links to my Facebook, Instagram, as well as Twitter. And that way you can also keep up with everything that we are doing there as well. If you're interested in the tools and stuff that I use during these videos, I do have a link down below that will take you to the affiliate links that will give you a quick list of everything that I do use. I personally use it as a checklist for things that I need relatively quickly. Of course, at the same time, too, also down below is a link to our website, Strange Aeon Games, so you can get a Mini Nomicon t-shirt. I'm actually still waiting for mine due to COVID-19. Thank you so much. But of course, at the same time, feel free to sign up for our newsletter. That way you get notifications whenever new projects or anything comes up from us. That way we can inform you about our new projects. And of course, at the same time, keep the madness going on the tabletop, and I'll catch you guys next time. Take it easy. Enjoy your weekend.